Hi guys. In this video I'm going to be using AI to speak for me, as I've lost my voice. We are looking at a mock test from Chilwell Driving Test Centre, starting in the small car park opposite the centre on Eldon Road. Turning left at the traffic light, the pupil takes up the left lane. This is the ideal driving position when following a road with multiple lanes. Changing lanes to turn right, the pupil checks his mirror and signals before gently leaning into lane 2. When changing lanes, you should check your mirror several times with brief glances, whilst maintaining your attention on the road ahead. The first driving fault is due to signal timing, and may be seen as me being picky. As he approaches the filter lane, the pupil does not apply his right signal, applying it instead when he is already in the filter lane. In my opinion, the signal should be used to let others know that you intend to join the filter lane. As we approach Bardill's Island, I have asked the pupil to follow signs to Nottingham. The signs tell us to use the right-hand lane as we approach the first traffic light, and this is where the learner picks up his second driving fault. On approach, the learner hovers in the middle of the two lanes for several seconds before committing to lane 2. Before moving, the mirrors should be checked to ensure it is safe to move over. Whilst the pupil did not check his mirror before moving, as there was no other traffic nearby and the car was already halfway between the lanes, I did not see the fault worth recording as anything more than a driver fault on this occasion. As we continue towards Bardill's Island, you'll see the directions for Nottingham on the left. The first sign gives us a map of the island, telling us that Nottingham is the third exit. The second sign tells us which lane to use. For Nottingham, we need to move into lane 4 as we reach the roundabout. Coming around the top of the roundabout, the lane splits into two, allowing you to take up either position for Nottingham. Ideally you should use the left lane here, however there is no problem with being in the right-hand lane, so long as you look to move back into the left lane after leaving the roundabout. The pupil does a great job here, deciding to move to the left and allow more enthusiastic vehicles behind to pass. He did say, however, that the black car could have been overtaken before moving left. Either is acceptable, provided you do it safely. This road is a national speed limit dual carriageway, so where safe, you'll be expected to make good progress towards that 70 mph limit. With the car ahead only traveling at 50 mph, this pupil keeps his speed matched to maintain a good following distance. If you find yourself gaining on the car ahead, you'll need to consider either slowing down or overtaking. Frequent mirror use will make this an easier decision. Approaching Bramcote Island, we are still following signs for Nottingham. The sign shows us that we can drive through the roundabout, rather than going around it. To do this, stay in your lane and continue ahead. For every other destination, you'll need to move into the filter lane on the left as you approach. This includes Bramcote Village, with signs reminding drivers to turn left onto the roundabout, then follow around the top. Up ahead, I've asked my pupil to turn left at the traffic lights. With the 24-hour bus lane on the left, we need to stay in the middle lane until the arrows direct us across into the left. The pupil does a great job of checking his mirrors before reaching the arrows, allowing plenty of time to react if there is a bus approaching on his left. The turn itself is quite tight, so it is important to get your speed down before turning if the lights are green when you approach. During your driving test you'll be asked to pull over several times. This is to assess that you can pull over safely and in an appropriate place. With this road being quite narrow, the pupil does a great job of pulling over tightly to the curb, checking his mirrors and signaling before doing so. When moving away, you'll need to remember to check over your right shoulder, the blind spot, before going. Whilst this pupil did look around, and it was safe to go, the blind spot check was not apparent, so this has to be recorded as a driver fault. Ahead you might notice the left turn signs. When approaching this junction, the examiner may not give you an instruction as they'll expect you to see and follow the signs. The pupil initially asked which way we were going, but then spotted the signs almost immediate to finishing his question. Missing directions like this could result in a fault, however, because the pupil corrected himself, I didn't see this as worth recording. I've asked the pupil to turn right towards Beeston up ahead. With this in mind, the pupil knew he needed to move into the third lane and began checking his mirrors. As we approach the turn for Beeston there is a filter lane and filter light for us. Notice the queue forming in the filter lane. Slowing down in good time, the pupil allowed plenty of time for cars behind to react. When turning right at junctions like this, be mindful of your steering. Keep the wheel straight before leaning into the turn. A common error people make is leaning away from the curb before turning. Keeping the car close to the curb before turning will reduce the chance of interfering with traffic on the left, which is traveling faster than us in this circumstance. Ahead we have some slow-moving traffic. The pupil does a great job of keeping his distance from the mini in front, and frequently checks his mirrors too. Checking your mirrors will allow you to spot bikes filtering through the traffic, meaning you are less likely to be caught off guard by a cyclist appearing on your left side. I'm going to speed up this section of the drive as it takes a few minutes to clear. Along this next road there are speed ramps and cars parked on both sides. The pupil plans for oncoming traffic by keeping his speed reduced and checking his mirrors frequently. When driving along roads like this, look out for places where there is enough room to pass oncoming cars. If you are faced with a gap which you are unsure about, be defensive and wait for the oncoming traffic to pass before you commit. Look out for invites from oncoming traffic too. If an oncoming car does invite you through, Move with a balance of confidence and caution, making progress, but equally being defensive. Asking the pupil to pull over again, he does a good job of choosing a safe place, checking his mirror and signaling before doing so too. With cars behind us, it is important to allow them enough time to react to your signals. Avoid pulling up sharply by choosing a position further ahead, allowing plenty of time to slow the car gently. Again, the pupil does not check over his shoulder sufficiently, so this has to be recorded as a driver fault. When pulling over, the examiner may ask you to park close to another car, roughly a car length away. They will then ask you to drive on again. This is an angle start. You'll want to move out slowly, checking ahead for oncoming cars, and checking the blind spot a second time as you start to move out around the parked car. Unfortunately, this is the third time this pupil doesn't check over his blind spot, which has to be recorded as a driver fault. Where a driver fault like this is repeated frequently, the examiner may choose to record a serious fault, so make sure you lean around to check that blind spot every time you intend to move away. Up ahead we have a double junction, where I've asked the pupil to turn left and then immediately right. I've previously made a short video about this junction, where another pupil unfortunately failed her test for driving straight across the junction. You need to treat the turns as separate, even though they are very close together, turning into the left before making the right turn. Asking the pupil to pull up on the left again, this will be his last opportunity to show me an effective blind spot check. After waiting for a cyclist to pass by, the pupil does look over his shoulder before moving away. Missing this blind spot check could have cost him the test, as I would record it as a habitual serious fault. I did ask my pupil to carry out an emergency stop on this road, however due to traffic behind us we had to abandon that. When asked to carry out an emergency stop, drive as normal until the examiner gives you the stop signal. Stop as firmly as you can, and remember to check over both shoulders before moving away again. As we come back into the test center, the pupil keeps his speed low and sticks to the left. This is perfect, as the test center car park is a two-way system. Be especially careful as you come around the side of the building here, as the view is extremely poor. You should bring the front of the car to the corner of the building and pause, checking it is safe before turning into the parking area. On this mock test, I'm going to ask the pupil to carry out a reverse bay park. The maneuver is completed cautiously, however the observations and accuracy are absolutely spot on, with the pupil finishing with all four wheels inside the lines. If you are not inside the lines when you finish, pull forward and correct your position. You will pick up a driver fault for the correction, however if you fail to correct it the examiner will have to issue a serious fault. I hope this video has been useful in preparing you for your own driving test. If so, please feel free to like, share, subscribe or comment. Thank you again for watching, and God bless.